least it got a little warm.
I hope I didn't fry my coil accidentally. That's really weird.
It's almost like the engine won't even turn over. Where would we be without a little drama?
What a freaking pain.
I'm about to take this 1930s style hot rod for a couple laps around the yard. But first, I need to hit rewind and bring you back to how we got here. This is the Hard Luck Jalopy, at least that's what I call it. It's a 1930 Model A running gear with a 1923 Willys touring car body with the back half cut off. And almost 1 year ago to the day, I got this car running behind the barn in a lean-to, and it was the very first video on this channel. So I'm hoping to make things come full circle today, where we take this thing in a full circle around the yard. My name's John, you're watching Hard Luck Garage. Alright, the last time you guys saw this thing, I had it just pulled in here from, I don't know, last fall, and I've since been hard at work. I took my little flux core welder and welded up the rods that somebody had cut, the ones that go to the linkage for the brake rod and the clutch pedal. Yeah, it's a little bit sketchy, but this is more of a proof of concept than a long-term solution. So if everything's fully functional, maybe we'll take it to the next level and put the right rods in here. I had to take a little propane torch and heat up the pedal a little bit to bend out of the way of the floor because it was hitting. It wouldn't let the clutch pedal freely travel. So I took a torch, heated the pedal, bent that thing in the right spot, and then I have clearance. I converted the starter from the floor push button to an actual push button switch on the dash. And that was actually the last video on this channel, but it was a short one. So if you're curious how I did that, you can watch that. I'll link it below or up in the corner. I used the starter solenoid from a Ford N-Series tractor and some switches that I got from the surplus store near me. A key switch and a push button start switch, and bottom line is, it works. I did some wiring, really basic stuff, but it's got a fuse block, and I just wired the ignition for now. I used a Model A electrical box and screwed it to the firewall, put some wood in for the firewall, make it a real firewall, maybe it'll start on fire. But just picked stuff away and came out here and tinkered for a while just to get stuff done and think about it without thinking about filming stuff. So of course I had to see if I could make it run from sitting behind the steering wheel, and check it out. Alright, I've had this thing sitting on the charger overnight. There's gas dripping out of the carb. I'm hoping that means it's full of gas. I'm gonna see if I can fire it up, and hopefully we got enough charge in the batteries, but this is gonna be it. Will it run from the button on the dash? Not yet, that's for sure. Hey, I'm gonna move my battery charger so it don't fall off. All right, trying it again. Where'd you go? Who knows, maybe it's not working enough. gonna make a fire, if anything. More than it ever did. Wow, all right. I got no water in this thing, so I'm gonna quit, but it's doing something, folks. Well, success is in the air. I can smell it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. That's the most and the best it ever ran. Definitely got some tuning to do, but that really fires me up. So I don't know if I can get it to run and idle for a little while, put some water in it. Maybe I'll see if I can move it, see if it'll drive. Don't know, might just go and not be able to stop. Like fun, dangerous stuff like that. So got my snowblower tank strapped to the cowl, and it's got like 1/4 of a gallon of gas in it, but that's enough, right? So I don't know, we'll see. Once I proved to myself that it would run and I could start it from behind the wheel, I took that Tillotson Model X carb that I pulled out of a storage bin when I got this thing running and took it off. I rebuilt a Zenith carb that came with this chassis, and after I swapped that carb on, it ran much better and it was a whole lot easier to start. One weird thing I had to do with that was heat up the carb body to get the Venturi out of it, because it's 2 pieces and the gasket that seals the 2 halves of the carb seals below the flange of the Venturi, so I had to heat it up and dunk it in a bucket of water to shock it, and then I was able to hammer it out using the socket and the vise, and it all came together. That's better than it ran before. All right, the next thing on my list was do the controls work. I'm talking foot controls. So I had to check and see if the clutch pedal was actually doing its thing. Okay, I got the floor back in this thing. I'm gonna hop in here and I'm gonna see if the clutch is doing its job or if I'm gonna need to modify the pedal or adjust it or whatever. So I'm just gonna hit the starter with the key off, with the clutch pushed in gear, and see if it wants to move forward or backward. Okay, so it actually seems to disengage. If I let off, gonna work. That's awesome. Yeah, this is gonna be good. Well, as long as things are going well, I could ruin my night and put water in it and see where it comes out, because that's the one thing I haven't done. And I don't think it's ever had water in it. But I just want to make sure the radiator doesn't have like a drain in it or anything that I'm missing, and I don't think it does. So I'm just gonna dump some water in it and see what happens. And I filled up a couple jugs with water and dumped it in, and I expected this thing to leak like crazy. You know, it never had water in it since the day I owned it. So I filled it up, and to my surprise, it actually held water. I had to tighten up one clamp that was a little loose, but other than that, it held water. So I decided to fire this thing up, and it wasn't all the way full yet, so I got a little bit of a smoke show. Guess it got a little warm. I filled it all the way up. Then the inevitable happened. The water pump leaks. Go figure. Model A, original water pump, unknown condition. It leaked right from the shaft where the packing goes in behind that nut. And after messing with it for a while, I think that nut's actually stripped out, but good enough for a ride around the yard. It drips. I don't care. I'm gonna put some water in it and see what happens. All right, I got two more things to talk about before we get to taking this thing around the yard. And the first one is I built an exhaust out of stuff I had, scrap tubing from work, cut it up, cut the bends, welded that together with my little Century welder. Thing works great for stuff like this, and it's all I have, so I'm using it. Pretty jalopy looking setup, which is exactly what I was going for. Sounds period correct. She's chooching a little bit. I think I gotta turn the gas off, which means I need this. The last piece of the puzzle before this car was a self-contained car is the fuel tank, and you can see it in the background. What I ended up doing was I used a bunch of offcuts and extra boards I had around, and I cut the shape of the tank out of the one, and I played with a bunch of different setups, and this was a good compromise between looking right and being high enough to flow gravity to the carb. I wanted to make sure it didn't look stupid. You can be the judge, but I had a lot stupider looking stuff mocked up that I did not like. So this is what we ended up with. I ran a hard line out of the bottom of the tank to a filter and a shutoff switch under the floor. Used a stock Model A fuel line and bent that to work. Here we are. I think it's, I'm gonna air up some tires and pop the door open and fire this thing up. See if we can get around the yard once or twice. Maybe make a big boom, I don't know. Just don't go anywhere. Turn the fuel on. And it's under the floor. Alright. Fuel on. Get the floor back in.
here we go. Let's see if this thing starts. And how well. All right, I'm fully committed. I shut the door. I left the key on, so that may put us out of business, but let's see. Clutch, neutral, choke. Let's try. Hope I didn't fry my coil accidentally. Uh-oh. What's the deal? Well, the starter won't work. This might turn out to be a bust. Now why won't you work? Well, what the heck? See if I got spark at least. Huh. She won't even crank over. That's weird. That's really weird. What's happening? Almost like the engine won't even turn over. I'm gonna see if I can rock it in gear, if it will turn the engine. That was weird. But now it's turning again, so I don't know what that was all about. Well, I guess let's try this again. Maybe we have fuel now. Do I have spark? Got fuel. Okay, we have spark. We're just waiting for it. Very dramatic. Did not plan on that. Give it a little gas, take a little timing out. Well, I don't want to start now. Maybe you ran out of gas. And that might be a yes. Where would we be without a little drama? Oh my gosh. Gasoline everywhere. Yeah. It's a yellow can, but it is gasoline. Long story, don't worry about it. I don't want to go too crazy because this tank's kind of rusty inside. Just want to have enough to push it to the carb, basically. Okay. Attempt number 2. Spark and fuel. Let's see if it'll go. Neutral. Not yet, that's for sure. Maybe my needle's stuck. Just gonna try it from right here. All right, here we go. Battery a little bit. It's gonna be so difficult. Embarrassing me. We're still acting like we're out of fuel. Or started. Just ain't enough gas. It was working the other day. Golly. Making it mad. This sucks. All right, I guess that's it. What a freaking pain. What's in that filter doesn't look so much like gas, but I'm just going to try again, see what happens. Maybe it settled down in the tank or something, but if I have to, I'm going to drain that whole tank and start with what I know is good, but see if this thing starts now. Now you want to go? More throttle.
the world? Well, maybe I just needed to let it sit a little longer. Let's give it a little bit more advance. Something's going on. What in the world? I know you guys saw that, but I don't know if this thing is afraid of the light, but it started and it's smoky in here. So maybe something settled out in the fuel, I don't know. But I guess maybe our drive around the yard will be tomorrow. Thought I was gonna have a little more drama here tonight. Besides a water leak. But anyway. Well, let's try this again when the sun goes back up. Alright, so it's the next day. I was out in the barn last night, fiddling around, and I ended up, well, the thing started right away, which is kind of weird, but weird is sometimes what we get. So hopefully it starts up this time. It's like Sunday evening, beautiful Michigan spring night. I'm gonna see if I can drive this thing around the yard, so fingers crossed.
We'll get there. We're running out of gas again. Fuel is on. Let's see if I can warm this thing up from behind the wheel. It seems to be starting at least somewhere.
Will it drive? Yeah, it drives. Even had a little brake, like this much. And one of the rear brake rods isn't connected, but we don't care about that right now. Thanks for watching. Check out links below if you want to buy merch like this and t-shirts and things like that. That'll be all, folks. Catch you next time on Hard Luck Garage.